is so clear, I realize, and here at last I have my eye.
Well, I mean, there's something about the way that I guess the vibe is what they call it now, but the way that your music hits, that there's like a it has almost kind of a mystical or a spiritual element to it. I mean, there's nothing that's like on its nose religious, but it's kind of this Appalachian. It sound pieces of it sound like a folk revival. Pieces of it sound like classic rock. Parts of it sound like you're skimming the AM radio while you're driving through the Appalachian Mountains. Is that a vibe that you're going for, or do you just kind of break stuff till you find that what works, or how do you get there?
It's just a constant search for stuff. And you just try things, and whatever feels right and sounds right, you go with. So it's just a matter of playing around, writing songs, and a lot of it feels like collaging. You know, um, adding elements that not shouldn't necessarily go together and smashing them together. Again, it's not. I don't like thinking about it too much.
Sure.
So it's trying to get your brain empty and maybe trust your gut, and let things flow that way and see what happens.
I mean, one of the things that's interesting to me is because we work with a lot of artists and creatives, and I did even before I was a therapist. And so part of this was kind of trying to find the through line in people that I think are just kind of like visionary and like what they're able to make in different disciplines. And I mean, a lot of your music has a timelessness to it. It's like you can't hear it and know where it came from. I mean,
That's kind
a
of
lot.
nice.
I mean, a lot of, and so that's kind of what is interesting to me in architecture or other things is when someone has, found something that's pretty primal or pretty archetypal, they're able to see through stuff. And it seems like a lot of genius in different fields is just people being bored. They've seen this, they've heard every guitar solo, they've seen all of that, and they're kind of noticing every single pattern that sells something, and they want to break it. And you kind of hear that in what you're doing. There's a
Well,
knowledge of
isn't
a lot
all
of
of it
different.
is like a search for your own voice and a search for your own truth and a search for your own physical self, even, um, that goes beyond uh, pop culture or trends or whatever. A lot of it is just like it still feels like making music and making art still feels like a search for self. To me, it does.
Yeah, that's why I think like we're lucky that you did get to make the one movie. You had mentioned somewhere that you had written others, and that the one that got made, only one has been made. But watching that movie, it's like all my friends are funeral singers. It's like this is from the same mind of this music. This is just this is the movie that goes with with that sound.
Yeah, it's not a perfect piece of work, but it is. It does. I mean, the one of the intentions was to make a movie that looks and feels like the music sounds, and I think we did that.
hmm Yeah, it's a gorgeous film. It's a lot of fun.
Thanks.
It ended up helping me way back when. I think I just graduated college, but I had some like long form story about all of these like different genres of ghosts, like ghosts from different genres of horror that were
Uh-huh.
different types of
Mhm.
people's psychological need for ghosts, but the genres are all smushed together and they're in this house, and so they don't quite get along. And then when your movie came out, I was like, well, I can't make that. That's exactly this is a better version of what I was trying to do. And
Well,
so
you
I
could
ended up
do
splitting it
that, but
up into these short stories, and it was better. I mean, the short stories were published separately, and it made a better thing. But it came at an interesting time for me. It's a really fun film.
yeah, and I mean, thinking about it, it didn't think about it at the time, but thinking about it now, it's like all those characters, all those ghost characters were aspects of Zell, the main character.
hmm
Like
hmm
that was all her. I mean, those were all archetypes that she carried. If you want to talk about it in that in
Yeah.
terms of that.
Yeah, no, that's what makes it beautiful, and bits of her history and family, good and bad, they kind of hold us back from our authentic journey.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, you reference like a lot of kind of Appalachian folk remedy ritual, you know, or superstition. A wish made burning onions will make, or a wish made while burning onions will come true. Different things like that in your music. Do you have an interest in kind of folklore and myth?
Oh, of course, yeah. Um, my family, when I was growing up, there was a lot of gambling going on
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of superstitions. So the way that whole funeral singers project started was I started interviewing, I had a little video camera and I started, asking people in my family and then friends and people that I knew and sometimes people that I would just run into about superstitions that they had. Some people that's like I have to touch the outside of the plane before I get on the plane
Yeah.
and all that. I don't know why. I guess it's a need for control in some way,
Mm-hmm.
but all that fascinated me and all the like thinking about like being a little kid around that stuff and a little kid with an overactive imagination. It was like that stuff. I knew it wasn't real, but the possibilities made my head spin. You know,
Mm-hmm.
even the possibilities of like growing up Catholic and learning, some of those images still
Mm-hmm.
make my head spin. Just it does not make sense, but the images are really, really strong and hit something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand. I don't understand anything.
Well, and I think when you are tapping into something that's kind of unconscious or archetypal and universal, it doesn't feel like it's yours almost. You're like finding this thing within you that doesn't quite come from you or that, we know is not limited just to us. It's kind of a collective experience that is, authentic and personal, but also almost kind of dissociative or, uh,
Yeah, and that might be one of the attractions to like looking into that stuff is to know that you're not alone in this strange stuff that bubbles up into
mhm.
your consciousness. You're not alone. We're all just part of the soup here.
You had mentioned when I had emailed you that you had done some work with a Jungian analyst.
Yeah, for years. I saw
Do you
her.
mind sharing any of what that process looked like for you, or what was helpful? You know,
It just started as like therapy to deal with, like I've always been sort of a depressed person and dealt with anxiety and depression. So a lot of it was to work through some of those things without medication.
mhm,
Um, and then as we got going, she taught me about um, meditation. It felt like part of it was therapy and it felt like part of it was going to school. She was always giving me stuff to read that was kind of great that I
mhm,
never knew about. Um, but yeah, I did it for a long time and it really did help quite a bit and helped me break some patterns. And it helped me like look at myself and my dreams and everything in a very different way.
mhm. Yeah, you can spot the Jungian leaning therapist when you're getting the reading list and the DVD list and the poetry,
Yeah,
homework assignments.
yeah, there was some beautiful stuff that I still look for stuff like that to read sometimes.
Well, I think it's kind of part of it. It's an art to be able to understand what somebody needs to read, even if it's not the poem that speaks to you or something. There's sometimes where I'm like, I think this is kind of where your head is. Why don't you check this out in between this session and the next one?
Yeah, I mean, even like transposing like an old story. I mean, I guess that's uh, Joseph Campbell stuff too, but
Hmm.
like transposing these old stories onto your own uh, trip
Hmm.
is really, really interesting and can be a beautiful thing.
You have a particular kind of myth or tradition, folklore, something that you relate to?
Oh God,
A lot of therapists, I feel like, get stuck somewhere between Chiron and Cassandra.
I don't know. There were these books. I've read them a couple times, and I might get the pronunciations wrong, but it's the books are He, She, and We. Do you know those books?
Mm-mm.
I think a guy named Robert Johnson, just like the old blues man, Robert Johnson wrote them.
The
And
Jungian analyst Robert Johnson.
yes,
Yeah.
um, and it deals with Fisher King
Mm-hmm.
myth, and I'm finding I'm like one of them deals with that a lot, and I'm finding I keep thinking about that now. Just getting older is how you have to make yourself um, innocent again. I think in the story you have to make yourself an idiot to get into the kingdom again. You know, as an older, you have to deal with. There's like a crone that tells you you're a piece of shit. There's like
Mm-hmm.
all these things that you have to get past to get back to that kingdom, and a lot of it is like letting go of cynicism, um, finding your innocence, like all that stuff in that Fisher King myth. Kind of, I guess it's hitting me now. I think about it a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah, and it is part of the process of aging. It's just giving up our intellectualism and our ego and our need to be certain, to have certainty, sometimes.
Yeah, and even just like not worrying about how you look
Mm-hmm.
or accepting who you are. Um, I don't know. That's the one that keeps bubbling up these days. Is that Fisher King myth?
Well, that's really pretty. That's beautiful. Um, you had said that Heron King, the album, was inspired by a dream that you had, that you had looked into it, and it was a druid ritual, I think. I can't remember. I read that, probably 10 years ago somewhere.
Um, yeah, that was a weird one. Uh, I probably was doing many drugs back then too, but there was dreams that I was having that were happening a lot, and it looked like a gigantic bird just screaming for me to get the fuck out of there, and I really didn't have anywhere to go. And as I got closer, I realized it was kind of a person,
Hmm.
like a person in a costume, or a person that was like a hybrid person and gigantic bird. And
Hmm.
then I was reading a book. Um, it was Robert Graves' book. It might have been.
Hmm.
It was either I Claudius or Claudius the God, one of those
Yeah.
two books, which I love. And they talked about the Romans trying to take Britain, and one of the ways that they started beating the Druids was they took this mythological creature that the Druids had in their mythological system, and dressed up a guy, put him on stilts, and had him just scream in the morning fog, like standing in this stream. And the Druids took that, they took that as an omen and got the hell out of there. And they were
Wow.
spooked, you know. And I was like, that's kind of like the image in my dream. And a lot of the music from that record came from, those images, and a lot of that feeling of the claustrophobia of being in a in a forest, you know,
Hmm.
and being afraid, and being and moving closer to that thing that you're afraid of, and then you realize it might be human, it might be
Hmm.
you, you know.
You might be the one yelling to get the fuck
Yeah,
out in the mask. Yeah.
you might be the asshole on still yelling at people. So I don't know. Um, but yeah, that whole making that record felt like a big fever dream.
I'm pretty integrative and eclectic. I like Jung, but a lot of people who just have a severe dissociative disorder, they're not coming in for kind of years of dream analysis. They just want to do brain spotting and stop dissociating and
Oh
get
yeah.
back to life. But the people who do kind of come in for a personal and creative rebirth, to really rediscover the self, you get a dream at the beginning of that process, almost before you know that that's what you want. A lot of the time that you're like outside of a labyrinth or a maze or the woods, some kind of wood whatever, and some type of thing is screaming at you to go, or to come fight it, or to and it's usually a hybrid, a dwarf or a giant, or a half man half animal. I mean, it's just wild how much of the time that happens at the beginning of that
Now,
process.
do you find that when you're dealing with people that come in with dreams like that, that you have to lead them or let them come to, like, everybody in your dream is you? It's an aspect of you that you have to deal with and that you have to look at, that was something that I understood intellectually, but didn't know in my bones until, like, after, using all that weird all that weird stuff that was happening to, like, make a record out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, and I think that's one of the things where people, especially younger people, like younger therapists, have a hard time because they want the Jungian stuff to be all analytical, all intellectual, and it doesn't matter if it's here. It's got to get down into the subbrain. It has to be experiential and somatic and in the body, and a lot of that is deep creativity and creating things. And and that's kind of, I think that's why you see a whole lot of Jungian analysts in the 70s leave the institute and start these somatic models or experiential models like process therapy and voice dialogue, and so many of them did that because they were getting frustrated that it was so intellectual and people were trying to publish these papers about myths instead of really pushing patients to experience the self and to go somewhere.
yeah, I mean, there's also, in my experience, there was a spiritual aspect to it where it was it did have a lot to do with learning how to quiet my brain and learning how to, like, learning how to meditate, learning how to be quiet, learning how to learning that creativity does not come from like chaotic experience. It comes from silence.
Mm-hmm.
The things that bubble up when your mind is quiet, the things that come without thought, usually are the things that are worth, the ideas that are worth pursuing, and they're all mysterious in a way.
And they're scary when you're used to the just pace of the kind of obsessive cycle in life and all of the fast-paced protective parts that stop us from having to sit with that kind of deep, authentic self.
Yeah, it's really scary.
Well, you do a lot of mixed media art too. That's really pretty. And again, you get the same juxtaposition in that you get in your writing and in your music.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. I really enjoy that. That feels like no pressure fun, is to make visual art, like the paint and stuff like that.
A lot of it looks like the Dave McKean Sandman covers. Do you remember that Neil Gaiman wrote? Have you ever seen those?
No, I haven't.
Neil Gaiman's like an author that does a lot with myth and stuff, but he did the comic book series Sandman, kind of about storytelling and things. It was real big in the 80s and 90s. But the covers, Dave McKean would do these mixed media ones, and similar, like kind of similar vibe. Do you sell any of the pieces that you make, the visual art?
Yeah, the last batch that I made in the, like, lockdown times, I think I sold almost all of that.
I'd love to get some for our office if you ever have another batch going on sale.
Yeah, I don't know when I'm gonna get a chance to, like, dig into doing it again.
Sure.
But yeah, I'll let you know.
Well, when the kind of idea of music, where music comes from, music being like an archetypal thing, and do you ever wonder about that? I was like looking at a study on, there's all these kind of, sometimes I'll find, I never was much of an anthropologist, but sometimes there would be these things that kind of jumped out that I thought were really cool. And like one of them was a study when I was in college. This guy was like being like, well, all the people, these prehistoric people, are going to these spots in the caves that are like really hard to get to and kind of dangerous. That they're not really, they're going to the weirdest part of the cave where you wouldn't really want to go. So what is it about it that makes them want to go there? And they did this sonic testing, and they realized that it was like the parts that would reverberate the most, that you're going there to, you would get these crazy echoes and spiritual, experience. I always thought that was interesting, this primal drive to create.
Wow. I never heard of that. That makes sense, though. Like, there's something in the physical, like finding finding rhythms that you personally can feel, and finding like modal scales that it feels very at home to
Mhm.
sing. Things that feel like really, 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 really natural. Like
Mhm.
there's something in that. Um, and for some people, it's going to be playing, like making loops on a computer, or
Mhm.
other different kinds of like patterns like that. But for me, like finding what feels really, 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 really natural
Mhm.
comes with like putting a guitar in a strange tuning. Um, like letting things drone like that,
Mhm.
and finding like rhythms that feel like like naturally walking. You
Mhm.
know,
But your
Uh,
music is maybe more timeless because you're using a felt sense to just kind of create a bunch of texture and then find the ones that feel right instead of thinking and planning and intellectualizing the
yeah, I don't know.
process.
Timeless is hard to tell, but it is like there is something in there where it's like, okay, that feels really, really easy. It
Mhm.
feels really easy, and it feels really natural to do that. Um, and sometimes, like I'm working on um, writing and recording a record, or a few records now, and it's like I'll write something and work on something that's like challenging, get it so that it's right, and then after all that puzzle making, I'll let myself write something that is so easy and effortless that I would normally just throw it away, you
Mhm.
know, but almost like as a reward
Mhm.
for doing something difficult, I let myself do something that feels so natural and easy that it's like a no-brainer, like literally a
Mhm.
no-brainer. Like I didn't even think about this, and I'm starting to like hum along this thing, and then words are forming, and
Mhm.
it just kind of naturally like falls out like a fucking turd, and you're
Mhm.
like, I feel better, feel better now, and sometimes that's the best stuff. So I don't know, but I can't really get there unless I do something that's challenging first, you
Mhm.
know, like suffer through a puzzle and find something great, and then do something that's effortless and have that be better than that something that you labored over for a month. Um,
Mhm.
so I don't know, it's a weird process. But a lot of that stuff that feels really, really natural, like for me, goes back to almost like West African
Mhm.
music, and and um, like drone music and mountain music from the U.S., and it's like all that stuff feels really
Mhm.
natural, and I always felt at home there.
Yeah. And even Sacred Heart, that kind of.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
there's I think Robert Poe Garrison mentions it in the Dominion of the Dead, but there's like a study. There's various like theories about the beginning of language, and one of them is that they kind of it begins from song because language is kind of before we're all the way evolved into humanity. It's already proto language is probably there,
Hmm.
and a lot of social species of animal. The time where they vocalize is when there's death, and that's there's a grieving ritual, and so like when an animal dies, then the mama lion yells at the heavens, or yells at God, or yells at the universe or something, even though there's no practical purpose. It's clear the baby's died. And a lot of in our evolution, so it's like you have even that kind of singing about death, people grieving and wailing, and then slowly being like, oh wait, ideas can fit inside of these sounds, we can make them mean different things. Language just being this song that we kind of forgot was a song. It was always kind of an interesting
Yeah, I mean, it's like a baby crying.
yeah.
It's Yeah, that's real.
Well, do you you have anything else you think is like interesting, or you want to share about your thought process as a writer, visual artist, or musician, or lack thereof, lack of thought process?
Yeah, it all feels like tumbling towards brainlessness. Um, but I don't know. I'm really happy that I'm still connected to creativity. And I feel like just really, I really appreciate being able to still have ideas and still have ideas that like frustrate and excite me and make me, and take over my whole being, so that I need to do this. I need to do, like, I feel really lucky that I still need to do this creative work.
You still have the drive, to
Yeah.
find something.
And to try to like just honor the impulse and use it to still keep searching for I guess myself.
A lot of your lyrics are almost kind of hard to follow in the music. They kind of show up and then disappear back into the texture of the sound. It seems like there's a lot about kind of grief and just accepting things. I remember it was like, after 2020 and the world was wild, and your stuff has a timeless element, but then it also kind of addresses some cultural things. And I was like, I wonder what this album will sound like. And like that first song is, Romans, drink yourself sober. Algorithms kill the algorithm. It's like, wow, there it is. That's very well put. But I can't tell you, I can't sit there and explain to someone. Like I was like telling my wife, like, doesn't this make a ton of sense? And she was like, no, but it made sense to me.
It makes all the sense in the world to me. But I can't expect people to get it. A lot of it's like there's, if I'm working on like a script and a story, I need to, especially with the script, I have to go, this is what happens, and then this is what happens, and then they say this, and they say, and you have to leave a lot of room for people to come in, and then leave a lot of room for people to, figure it out for themselves. And with music, it feels, I think with music, it's really hard for me to like try to sell an idea, because it does feel so personal. So there might be things that pop in that do feel cultural, but really it's like, I think that's maybe, one of the reasons that a lot of people don't like what I do, or can't even hear nothing, like, and that's part of it. And I'm okay with that. But it is like a lot of people would, hear a Califone record and just go, this is just sound. And that doesn't make any sense. And I have to be like, okay, like, it's okay. Because the purpose of it for me is to make this thing. And if it does hit some people in their heart and they can feel it and they can understand it, then that's who's supposed to be getting it. Like, I'm not trying to like communicate with a bunch of people. I'm trying to like figure out how to say a prayer. I'm trying to figure out how to like, be alive and be okay with being dead. That's what a lot of the process of creating music is. So I can't expect people to get it. And that's another thing with the stuff I'm doing now, is like, I have to be okay with that.
Well, I think when you make art in a personal and authentic way, and you've done your own work and your own healing, the insecurity goes away, and you don't need to sell it. Your ability to sell it is gone, because it's like, you're either going to get this or you don't. This is what it is.
Yeah, it's still frustrating because I would like more money. But
sure, yeah.
But that's the way it is. But it feels like it would be like I just did a job and made music for a game. That
You've done some
felt like,
soundtracks, a couple of them, other than the one for your film.
a whole bunch. I've done a whole bunch of that kind of work, and it feels like a relief to do that sometimes, because it's not about me at all.
You're clocking in and clocking out, but using your technical ability.
Yeah, and also like being as creative as possible, but being also as impersonal as possible. Like this is what is going to serve the story, or serve the idea, or you always do the best you can,
Mm-hmm.
and you always try to like feel it in your gut. But with my records, with Caliphone stuff especially, it's like that's for me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the only area in my life where I have the final say and where I do have a bit of control over what the final product is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else I have to work, like I have to make decisions with other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when you're doing something that's a soundtrack, it's not about you. It's easier to not worry about it. Or to
Yeah,
serve
you're
somebody
you're
else's.
serving a story.
And you've done a couple things with Isaac Brock of Modest Mouse, Ugly Casanova, and then you did some studio work with him too. I mean, that guy's got a lot of inner vision and drive too. What
It
what
sure
was that
does.
like, kind of coming together to work with him?
I don't know. It's been a long time, but yeah, he's all nerve, and I don't know how he does it. I remember like when we were doing that Ugly Casanova thing, like sort of like working on lyrics and getting ready to put some things down, and Isaac, I don't even remember him like looking at a piece of paper. He just seemed to be singing, and it seemed to be like he was just making it up on the spot, and it was incredible. So I don't know.
But you were able to, so that you were kind of able to collaborate with him, or did it feel like more supporting the vision, feeling out what that was that he had?
um well, on the Modest Mouse stuff that I worked on, which is not very much, I did a little bit on that Moon and Antarctica record.
Mm-hmm.
And Brian Deck produced it, and it
Mm-hmm.
was at our studio, so I was around quite a bit. But yeah, that was like, do you have any ideas? Well, this is what I think. Well, let's try that. It was like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the Ugly Casanova thing, we came in, we we were doing stuff together like quite a
Mm-hmm.
bit. But yeah, I couldn't really put my finger on what he was doing, but it was very, very effective.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's like, he waffles between being a total maniac and sometimes seeming like a total idiot to
Mm-hmm.
being a genius and doing something really brilliant or saying something amazing. Another thing when we were making that record is like, he's an incredible cook.
Mm-hmm.
Like every day we had really good food. He and Brian were cooking a lot, and they were making great food all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember reading about he'd said that he may retire into culinary at some point.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess cooking could be not that different than making records.
Yeah, I mean, you're trying to find something new, and trying to find things that go together, in a certain way. Well, what are you working on now? Can you talk about it, or you have anything coming out?
Um, just right now, like working on like a Califone record that might be a few different records,
Hmm.
and getting ready. There's a couple more things to record and a couple more things to write, but it's really close and it just needs to be mixed. So just trying to find time to go and mix this thing, to like camp out with Brian Deck and mix the record.
Hmm. Well, I can't wait to hear it. That's really exciting. Anything that you want to plug or promote now?
I don't know. We're just getting ready to play some shows for the first time in a long time, in LA and in Ojai and Phoenix and Portland and Seattle in August.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're around there, I mean, I don't know does this go on like Apple Podcasts, or I don't know
Yeah,
how.
it goes out on everything, everywhere you can get a podcast, and YouTube too.
Okay.
I remember way back when. I don't know if it was. I don't remember what it was for, but the y'all were doing the living room show series, and we're in Birmingham, Alabama, so one of the things they were like, if you have a living room that works in Birmingham, we're doing these living room shows, and me and my wife had this teeny tiny like Monopoly house that was like one room, you know, you could see from the kitchen into the bedroom, and I was like, oh, we could open the back window and then the backyard, and we can find some way to make this work. And she was like, I don't know, I don't think this is gonna work. But yeah,
I think we did some living room shows there. I think we played in Birmingham a couple of times.
it
I know
wasn't
we
on
used to
that
play
one
a
because
place
it
called Bottle
disappeared.
Tree there. That was
Bottle
really
Tree.
great.
This was after Bottle Tree was gone. And y'all played at Bottle Tree before I was back in Birmingham. I was always at Swanee when you guys were playing there. That was a neat venue.
Yeah, I really like that place. But I thought we played a living room show or two in Birmingham some years ago.
Well, we got a bigger house now with a bigger backyard. If you ever want to do another one, there's a waterfall and stuff you could play
I'm
next to.
afraid. Yeah, the waterfall. I'm down with the waterfall. I don't know if I'm down for living rooms until like maybe there's less people getting COVID all the time.
Yeah.
Because you have to be sort of like crunched together.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's usually like people smush together.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I want to
Yeah,
do
for
that.
sure. It'd all be outdoors. We got room in the back if you ever have need. But well, I want to be respectful of your time. I know I had originally said 15 minutes, so I don't want to keep you from everything you're working on. But you know, anything else that about storytelling, or you know, the scripts you've written that weren't made, or you know, writing you feel like you'd like to talk about?
I don't know. I'm working on it's turning into an animated series now, and I'm writing with a friend and working with an artist. That's great. And I don't know. It's really, really fun. It's really fun to do. But so yeah, there's still scripts. Hopefully something we'll get to make another film at some point, and hopefully we'll be able to get this thing made. But I don't know. In the meantime, I'm always doing something.
Yeah. Well, that's fascinating. I really appreciate your time, and just kind of talking about the psychology of music and creativity there. It's always really interesting to see what, you know, is on the other side of the artwork when it's something that, you know, I enjoy and have spent a lot of time with.
Awesome. Well, thanks. It's great talking to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, and good luck with everything. I hope that everything you know, that you want to make, you're able to make in the way you want to make it.
Thank you. I hope the same for you.
Well, take care. I'll turn the recorder off.
Okay.